Mic's on. Hello, I'm Jeremy. Thanks for coming today. I am doing 2 videos a day, Monday through Friday, except maybe not tomorrow. My entire day is filled, so there may not be any videos tomorrow. I don't know. We're just gonna have to see. Maybe I can sneak a couple in on the weekend. We'll see. But I do two. One is for a YouTube channel called Practical Focused Improvement, and the other channel is for freedom of expression. But if you're watching on something else, then they're all rolled in together in one. And with my practical focused improvement of myself, I've given it a little spin, calling it creating a noble house. Because you know what, if it's good enough for me, then it should be good enough for my children, grandchildren, for you. You know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And it's not just little hippy dippy stuff. It's supposed to be things that are supposed to be practical. And so it's kind of geared towards looking inward at yourself, saying, what have I done? And then taking what you've learned, kind of dwelling on it a little bit as to how you can apply that to your life, and then actually doing it. So we've talked about individuality a little bit, and today we're going to talk about kind of the first step, I guess you could say, towards being more responsible. Because with a lot of things, and not with everything, but with a lot of things, there's a lot of things that we can point in towards ourselves. It's like, well, are you playing video games, or are you expanding your knowledge? And there's no one to blame for something like that besides you or me. So if this is something that you're interested in, then I would appreciate it if you gave the video a like, a thumbs up, and if you subscribe. That would help out a lot. And yeah, see what it is that I figured out, because I'm doing all the work, or at least a good portion of it. So then that way you don't have to. I'm kind of, taking from all these sources, bringing it together, and kind of going through it too, because there's so much kind of lying that's going on. And in this, even though this isn't political, because that's something that I say with my political videos, with the freedom of expression side of it, that I'm not trying to change anyone's minds. I'm just trying to show that there's lying and misinformation. And it's with this too. It's all over the place. It's ridiculous. So I wanted to go over a few little things before we got going on to this. And so up above me, and I need to enlarge that. This is I've got a coat of arms that I'm creating, and part of it has personal or family values. And with the family values, I think I've got 10 of them. And the family values are change. Second one is courage. Third is truth. No, third is improvement. Fourth is truth. Fifth is devil's advocate. Sixth is individuality. Each person is an autonomous individual deserving of respect and dignity equal to that of all others. But that's only on your base encounter. You know, after you've had an encounter, you know, it's like, well, are they actually showing you respect and dignity? And if they're not, then it's not that you necessarily don't show them respect or dignity. You just walk off. You're wasting your time. It's just like, you know, it's like you could be playing video games where you're fighting or whatever. You could be learning something. It's like video games are just wasting your time. And you can be fighting and trash talking or whatever. It doesn't matter. You're just wasting your time. And sometimes, you know what, that's what you need. You don't need your brain just going 100 miles an hour all the time. But pick and choose your battles, and if somebody's just not being respectful and showing you any kind of dignity, then... So 7 is responsibility, which we're going to be looking into today. 8 is forgiveness, and 9 is magnanimity. Magnanimity means that you just don't deal with pettiness, so kind of like what I've just been talking about. And there's just this little saying that I like, and it goes, how quickly I forget that this is meaningless. And I try to apply that. I try to remember that and apply that to everything. It's like, am I really doing something that's meaningful, or have I just let my emotions get the better of me, like my anger or some kind of malice towards the topic or the person? And it's like, if that's the case, then this is meaningless. It's stupid. It's like, if I have this figured out, then it shouldn't matter what anybody has to say, unless if they have something that's legitimate. But otherwise, if they're just coming up and yelling at me or treating me like crap, it's like, well, yeah, I've got better things to do than that. I had 10, like thankfulness, I think is the one that I took off. Well, and I had being humble, and it's like there's quite a few, and I might add those back into it, but we'll wait and see. It's neither here nor there right now. Saw a thing with Tim Pool, and he was talking about that this cultural war is more of a gender war, and it's like, yes, I think that's actually it. I think that's more spot on than anything. It's more of a gender war. It's because all the time I just see all of these girls and some guys, they're just absolutely lazy. They don't understand reality at all, and they are just manipulative as hell, and they think they just deserve respect and your attention and whatever just because they exist. And it's like, you're out of your damn mind. They're completely irresponsible and immature, and it just drives me up the wall. And part of it is because you can go online with all this anonymity, and you can just say and be and do these horrible things, and then you have these freak shows out there, politicians, celebrities, these blue check marks on Twitters, who just have lost complete touch of reality, or they're just psychotic and they will take advantage of you and they just don't care, and it's just it's stupid. Fortunately, there are plenty of guys and some girls too, for sure. So there are definitely girls that they've got a good head on their shoulders, and I would say that actually the majority of people are just people who they've never given this really kind of any thought. They're just so busy with their lives, with trying to figure out, I need to do a good job and do all this work for my career. And then I also with education and my friends and my family and so on. It's just, where do you make time for something like this? You blink a few times during the day and it's like, day's over, time to go to bed. And you've got all this crap to do. It's like you're filled with all these routines. You have a morning routine and evening routine and like a billion other in between the two. So it's understandable, but that's what it is that I'm trying to do with this, is I'm trying to clear myself up, and then hopefully in the process, there'll be at least a few people who'll do it. I suspect there probably won't be very many, but you never know. Who knows? So I wanted to define what responsibility was, and holy crap, is it just a nutshell out there. So let's start with some of these things that I kind of found, because it was these little quotes that I found seemed to do a better job than what I could find that was a little bit more official online. So here's one. If you're searching for that one person that will change your life, take a look in the mirror. It's like, yes, there's nobody who has any more control than you. And since I'm having a hard time finding a good definition with this, I'm just going to have to work on this on the fly. The one person who can change your life the most is you. Because it's just like right now. Who knows, maybe I just have it figured out right now and I'm giving you the best advice ever. Doesn't mean a damn thing if you don't do anything about it. This is one of the things that I was having an issue with, was that for years I was looking at a lot of stuff and I just wasn't doing anything. And I came across it about a year or two ago, and it was just spilled out that's procrastination. Procrastination is, oh, well, I need to learn more. I can't do any of this. I don't know enough. If I know a little bit more, holy crap, that was me. And I've been doing this for a couple of years, and it's like nothing's changed. And it's like there's always more to learn. And I just kept kicking the can down the road. And even though I was learning all of this good stuff, it's like, what does it matter if you're not doing it? It means absolutely nothing if you're not doing it. And part of it was that, well, I want to do a good job. It's like, that's wrong. It's like, you should be doing something as much as you can. Don't worry about getting it wrong or right, because you know what the truth is? The truth is you're going to get it wrong no matter what. And whenever you actually do it, that's whenever you're really going to learn the most. And I tell you what, I've done some changes in my life. I've actually tried to take on a couple of hobbies. And I can watch videos and read articles until I'm blue in the face. But I tell you what, I don't learn any better than whenever I actually go and just do it. And I make mistakes galore. But whenever I make the mistakes, then I become aware of them. And then I can go look into them. I can go look into those mistakes for the corrections and make changes. And that happens so often. It turns into a bunch of what ifs. So maybe you've been watching the Marvel movies and you know they're doing that series right now, the cartoon stuff of the what if. Because it's all playing into, there was one timeline, it got fractured, it was destroyed, and now there's all these what if universe that are appearing all over the place, and they did that actually for marketing for comic books so that they could rewrite the characters differently and publish a comic book to say, well, what if the superhero was actually a villain? How would that play out? And they're doing a horrible job with the cartoon. I've hated all of them. They're all just ridiculously stupid. They had such a good chance to display that your actions have consequences. A good example of an old movie that does this is that old black and white one. What is it? A Christmas Carol, where it's a small little town and he works at a bank. What's the name of that movie? Not A Christmas Carol. It's a Wonderful Life. I haven't seen it in a long time. And it has Jimmy Stewart, isn't that his name? Yeah, Jimmy Stewart, James Stewart, George Bailey there, and Mr. Potter. So James Stewart, George Bailey, he lives in this little town, and he thinks his life's kind of meaningless and drab. He's not very rich. He buys this rickety old house. It's like, oh, it was a good buy, but we've got to put some elbow grease in it, but we can make it into something really good. You know, it's this delayed gratification. And then Mr. Potter owns the bank, and he's got all this money and all this wealth, and he's kind of really crooked and greedy and just self-interested in just himself, and he doesn't really care about anybody else. And I think George Bailey, he actually works at a rival bank. And so one day he's just kind of down on himself, and he's over a bridge, and he's thinking about committing suicide, I believe, if I remember right. And then this guy comes along. Like, no, that's what you think is going to be good? It's like, no, it's not. But I'm going to make your wish come true. I think it's hinted at that he's an angel. Because it's that saying, every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. And so he makes his wish come true. And his wish is that, I wish I hadn't been born. I'm not making anything better. So it happens. And so here's the town without George Bailey. And this angel character is walking with him. It's like, well, yeah, all this happened because you actually did this and you did that and this over here. You stopped Mr. Potter here and there. So Mr. Potter just kind of gained control over everything because he didn't have any opposition. And the whole place just kind of went down into the gutter. And it was just one horrible thing after another. And he missed everything. And then at the end, he ends up being at the bridge again. And everything's changed back to the way that it was, and he's so thankful, and all of these people come in to thank him for all the work that he's done. And it's a really good movie about how one person can have a really big impact on things, and it's a good little story for sure. If you've never watched it, it's definitely a holiday movie. It's set around Christmas, So here's another one. You need to be taking personal responsibility for your results, which kind of. And at first, it's like, well, the guy who's winning here in the green, you need to. It's like, to a degree, I mean, some of that is genetics, but with all of these guys, they're all taking personal responsibility for themselves because they're the ones that are there. And they would just smoke us if we got into a race. Every last one of them. There's nobody there pushing these guys along. There's nobody there picking up their feet and moving them. There's nobody who's forcing food down their throats. There's nobody there watching them whenever they're away from training saying, no, you can't eat this and you can't drink that. They have decided, I'm going to stick to these diets, these exercise programs, and I'm gonna work to make all this happen. Every last one of them there. To even get there, you have to be responsible with yourself and what it is that you're doing. And there's no one else who can do this. It's just you. Yeah, and because taking personal responsibility, you know what it doesn't do? It doesn't guarantee success. Now, I would say that I think it's a real strong guarantee that you can at least make things better, but it's not like the end-all be-all and just everything's just going to go your way. No, hell no. Because you can do the best that you can, and you go in for that job interview. Well, that person who's looking to hire somebody, if they're doing the best that they can, they're going to hire the right person for the job. And even though you've done the best that you can, you may not have the qualifications for that job. But just because you don't get the job, that doesn't mean that you quit. And that's something wrong with these participation trophies. It's like, well, you know what? You go in for that job interview, they're not going to give you a participation trophy for that. You need to learn failure. You're going to fail at a lot of things, and you need to learn to get up and to dust yourself off and to keep going. And they're taking that away from children whenever they do that. So if you do have kids and they're doing this, you should break that damn thing and say, no, you lost, and it's okay. That's life. You're not going to be able to date all the people that you want to date, get all the jobs that you want, and the money and everything else, and that's okay. There's plenty of things to be happy with life and plenty of things to find joy in. And if you fail, that's not a reason to give up either. So here's the first one where some of this was good, some of it was stupid. Ways to take responsibility for your life. Own your thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. It's like, yeah. Now, your thoughts, a little harder. You have kind of thoughts that pop in there. Feelings, for sure. Because it's like, what are my feelings that I'm having? Or the feelings of your neighbor? You don't know. You have no idea. Same thing with you. I don't know what your feelings are. Even if we were face to face, we can give some clues. We have nonverbal communication, and we have actual verbal communication. You can tell by the tone, someone's voice. So we have little clues, but really it's like you don't know because they're all self-contained. You've made this up on yourself. So if you're feeling some kind of way, there's no one to blame for you except for you. And also, definitely, you are responsible for the words that come out of your mouth. Nobody's making you say those things. No one has control over your voice box and your throat and your mouth and your lips and your tongue. Nobody's doing that except for you and your actions. Now, you might be intimidated in a way that you say things and do things that you don't want to do. And that definitely happens. Stop blaming. It's like, I see this a lot, that people will put blame on things that are completely out of your control, or you want to blame others for things that you've done. And that's something that I see a lot, like with a lot of the things that are going on with government and society. We'll get into that a little bit. Stop complaining. Oh, yeah, I agree with this one. Complaining isn't going to do anything about it. This is something this is where that phrase comes from with the women. The wife's just nagging. Girls just nag all the time. And you hear it too, it's like girls don't want their problems solved. That they just want to be able to express that. And it's like, no, screw that. You know why? Because I don't want to hear it. Do not come to me bitching about your day. You either shut up and you deal with it, or you make a change. But don't you dare bring that negative bullshit to me unless if you want to do something about it. And you had better. You better grow up and show that you can deal, because if not, I tell you what, you can get to stepping right out that damn door. Because I have enough issues going on in my life that I don't need it compounded by a child who doesn't want to do anything about it. Just go throw your pity party with somebody else. I don't want it. I'll take that from little kids. But even with kids, it's like, I'm going to help them deal with this so that they can have a good, positive, strong, productive life. Instead of just this weak little pile of mush. Refuse to take anything personal. That's a good thing too, right there. I mean, people want to take everything under the sun just personal. So just like I was saying just a moment ago, where I was listing with the coat of arms, that one of them was magnanimity, and part of that is not being petty. You know, that there's a lot of things that are actually petty, just all over the place. And I like that phrase, how quickly I forget that this is meaningless. And it comes from a song that I used to listen to whenever I was younger. It's like 15 years old, maybe even more now. Yeah, it's old. It's not old to me because it's like I'm much older than 15. So, but that was part of the chorus. How quickly I forget that this is meaningless. And I love thinking that. I try to remember that often, because whenever I do get frustrated, it's like that makes me go into a self-examination. It's like, okay, well, what am I really getting upset about? Does this really mean anything? If I continue this, is this really going to change anything? Or is it still going to be the same? And a lot of times it's like, no, it's with someone else. It's not going to change their mind. So what am I doing? I'm the only one who has any control over this with me and myself and I. And so it's like, well, I don't want to do this, so I'm not going to be a part of it. Kind of along those lines. Make yourself happy. That kind of goes along with feelings, but my goal in life is not to make myself happy, because bad things just happen. And it's just in a way that you can, you know, because it's like you can have people come over and you're happy, and you do have control over it. Just like you have control over whether if you're sad or depressed. I mean, there are things that are definitely help, but I would put that kind of along with feelings. I think that's more of a virtue signaling kind of thing, because that should be kind of implied with feelings, that you definitely have a lot more control over that. And it's not just forcing yourself to be happy, but it's evaluating things, and it's like, okay, well, what can I actually do to bring that about? You know, and it's things like stupid little things, which really aren't that stupid, such as, well, get cleaned up, clean your place up, eat right, exercise. It's like, yeah, it's a little things, but when there's like a billion little things that you can do. And if you just did like 100 little things every week, that's going to have an impact. And because they're just little things, that it's going to add up, and it's just going to have a greater and greater effect as you go on. And that's part of what I'm doing with the schedule, is that I want to keep it up. I don't want to just be kind of spontaneously reacting. It's like, that's stupid. Live in the present moment. No, I don't see how that's being personally responsible at all. Because you can absolutely have plans. You can make goals for 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, for every month, for every week, for every day. You know, and with a grain of salt, especially the long distance plans, but you can have them and you can make those things work. Like, I can plan to work out tomorrow if I wanted to, and I can do that tomorrow. But to just live in the present moment, it's like, no, that's contradictory to being responsible. Because you have responsibilities that you know of today that you need to do tomorrow. 100%. You should absolutely know that. You know, it's like, well, I got to get up at this certain time. I got to be at work at this certain time. And I've got all these other things that I want to do. So that's just trash. Use the power of intention. It's like, well, yes. And see, they just contradicted themselves. It's like, It's like, I'm going to be intentional in my actions by going and working out tomorrow. Feel calm and confident. What does that have to do with being responsible? You can be a coward and have low confidence, but you can still start taking personal responsibility. And there's no guarantee that if you're taking personal responsibility that you're going to become calm and confident. I would say it would help, but it's not like, Look for the good in people. That is just trash. What the hell are you talking about? There are people who are absolute garbage, and you can look into the depths of their souls, and they're just trash. That is just, and this is the problem that I was facing with all this stuff. It was just like, here's one. Now, this is from a website. This one is developgoodhabits.com, and this is stupid. So I had to get into it a little bit because they filled it out with all this fluff trash, but finally they asked the question, what is personal responsibility? And here's how these morons answer it. When you have a sense of personal responsibilities, it means you are willing to accept and live by society's established standards of individual behavior. That's exactly what Nazis did. What are you talking about? Nazis were living by society's established standards of doing all kinds of crappy things to Jews. Screw yourself. That's collectivism. Whenever you want to do what society says. Now, if you have a good society, society should be geared toward helping the individual. But this has a word where the individual is living by what society wants. That is absolutely backwards. When these expected standards aren't met, someone with personal responsibilities doesn't seek to blame. Rather, they are maturely responsible to the presented challenges themselves and take any blame for their actions. See, they're taking half of it and they're twisting it around into this trash. The standards are set by you because you can only be responsible for yourself and you define your values. And so this is what I wanted to kind of dig into with this. So now with this above me, with responsibility, all values are personal. Public bodies, such as society, they have no feelings or anything towards anything. They have no feelings. They don't have any personal responsibility or values or nothing. You can put them there, but it's not there. It's not there at all. You know, it's like a group doesn't love you. The government doesn't love you. The government is an organization. Samsung, the electronics company, Samsung, doesn't love you. Just names anything. The computer company doesn't love you that built you your computer. The Ford company that built you your car doesn't love you. Groups don't love you. The individuals love you. They don't have values. They don't have any of that stuff. It's trash. Oh, and I guess one more thing before we get into it. This is Jordan Peterson's answer on personal responsibility can change your life. And like half of this is just this cringy girl who's just here just making a political statement, and it's just everything about it is just, and he, you know what, screw it. I tell you what, it's going to make my eyes roll in the back of my head, but we'll listen to this damn thing.
The next question comes from Kath Larkin.
Hi, my question is also for Peterson, and while I very much stand with the women's advocates in the room, my question is sort of on a different topic. You have a...
Well, why are you saying all that? If you've got a question for him, then just give the damn question. I don't understand for all this fluff. Well, no, I do. And it's because she's just there virtue signaling, saying, look at me. Oh, look at, it's like, shut up.
A whole lot of fans or former fans, kind of so-called now.
She's making assumptions there. Former fans? I don't know if former fans of Jordan Peterson, whenever people listen to him It's like they either love him or hate him. I don't know of any people who flip-flop back and forth. And the overwhelming majority of people like this man. So she's just lying through her teeth.
Ex-lobsters, people like Brendan Ship.
Man, she's so stupid she doesn't even understand what he's talking about whenever he's talking about lobsters.
And a lot of these people talk about you have very simple answers to.
She is so stupid. There is nothing about this man that is simple at all. All the stuff that he gives is wildly, deeply explained. He does this biblical series, and he spent 2 or 3 hours, and he didn't even start on the first chapter, or maybe he just got to the first chapter, and whenever he got done with it, he proclaimed that, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, and everybody laughed. He didn't even get into it, and he just spent hours just,
complex questions. I think you often talk.
I mean, this is something that he talks about too, is that life is complex and that people use all of these oversimplified platitudes all the time to explain everything. It's this whole thing against ideology. I mean, I just did a video a couple of days ago about ideologues with Jordan Peterson, and that it's like, this is all trash. Everything's more complicated. So she's just lying through her teeth. Or she's just dumb as dirt.
Talk about individual responsibility over things that it's impossible for individuals to actually have responsibility over. You look at.
You know why? Because girls don't want to be responsible. They want somebody else to hold their hands, and guys too. But I would say it's more girls than guys, and then on the reverse side, you have more guys who are taking personal responsibility and less girls, And I tell you what, if you find a girl who's really understanding personal responsibility, you just gobble that girl up. She's great. There's this another YouTube channel called Taylor's the Fiend, or Taylor the Fiend, or A Fiend, or something like that. And he gets these TikTok videos of all these girls. And I tell you what, it is one nut job after the next. The privilege and the laziness and the immaturity and the self-righteousness that all these stupid, just insane girls have, it's like you're out of your damn mind. And your problems are not my concern. You did this yourself. It's just ridiculous. Go watch that. If you're just questioning Taylor the Fiend, he's got some little vampire thing. It doesn't match. He's got this vampire avatar thing or whatever, but he's just talking about girls and how insane they are. It's like, I didn't realize how bad it was. And I tell you what, it just lined up whenever Tim Pool said the other day, whenever he was saying in his video that this isn't a culture war, more of a gender war. It's like, I think that's it more than anything.
The extortionate housing market, the precarious gig economy, like things that are well out of our control. So I want to know, what is your...
It's so stupid. She is literally talking about things that you don't have any control on a global scale. Just like you have no control over anything with people anywhere in China with a damn thing at all. That is not personal responsibility. You're conflating global responsibility into personal responsibility. You're such...
Answer to young people for some of the really...
this is the same thing with what we've already looked at before, where they just want to take it and twist it. They want to throw the definitions out the window, and they just want to put in whatever kind of word vomit that they want to in place of it.
Big problems facing humanity, like the climate catastrophe, like economic...
That is not personal responsibility. What are you talking about?
Crisis, like the precarious job market, because they just don't, like, you talk all this much about individual responsibility.
So I'm just going to shut up now and just let Jordan Peterson get to it, and he's going to bash her a little bit because she's just brain dead. She's barely working off of a brain cell.
Most of us are never going to be able to afford to have all of these assets to have responsibility over. So
no, having assets and having responsibilities over them is not you. Personal responsibility is you, not your trash that you have. No matter what it is, that is not it. It is about your actions and your words. And yes, it does mean on what you do with your spending and what you buy and don't buy and how many hours you work and everything. But it's centered around you and not your You're trash garbage. Ugh.
What is your advice beyond banal comments like clean your room?
How stupid do you have to be? You think that he's literally saying that if you go clean your room, all your problems are going to be solved? Do you not understand how stupid that is? I swear, I hate watching some of these people who talk to him. I tell you what, it is men and women that they just treat him like he's just like, well, you must be an idiot. And he just, and he's going to do it now.
Well, it's actually rather difficult to answer a question that ends with your comments are banal politely.
Why is she smiling about that? Is she happy that she got called out for being an asshole? It's like, why would you smile and be thankful about that? Why would you be happy about that? You should be ashamed of yourself. You're on national television, and this got shown around the world because this is over there in the UK, in British or whatever, and this got shown all over. And this is what you want to be proud of? That you got on live television and you started doing name calling. That's great. Set your standards high. Oh, no, wait, you didn't. Talk about setting the bar as low as possible.
I would consider that more of an opinionated personal and political statement than actually a question. So why don't you try reformulating that so that there's an actual question there?
What is your advice? So what is your advice to young people when you talk about you need to be individually responsible?
And then she just lists all these stupid things, like listing 15 things is going to make it any different than just listing like 3. It's like, get on with it. Oh, I hate this because she's just trying to one-up him instead of actually, she doesn't care about what he has to say.
Responsible. But when there are things that are so far out of our control, like climate catastrophe, like the precarious job economy,
all these other global things that I want to list.
What is your answer?
Do you think that you're worse off than your grandparents?
I think there are different challenges.
Do you think you're worse off than your grandparents?
I think that
Jordan, once again, we're not going to cross-examine our questions. So try answering the...
I love it because I know where it was going with that. Do you think that you're worse off than your grandparents? It's like, because you're not. You're better off than your grandparents. You know why? Because a whole bunch of individual people did a whole bunch of changes. Because we have changes in everything everywhere. So, for example, whenever my grandparents were children, they were out there picking out there at the fields whatever crop it is that they were growing by hand. It's like, for example, my grandmother told me that whenever she was like 3 years old, she was out there picking cotton, and she saved up enough money in a couple of weeks to be able to buy her first pair of shoes, and they had burlap sacks. That's because whenever the grain and whatever that they had, the seed and all this stuff, it came in burlap sacks, and they just cut holes and cut it around so that you could have clothing for it, because that's how poor that people were. But whenever I got to be a child, I was able to drive tractors, and I did more work than they could have ever possibly imagined during their lifetime, because I had this tractor. You know why? Because people invented that stuff, because they innovated. And it's not because they cried and complained, it's because people got off their butts and they did something about it.
Question about collective responsibility on climate change, for example. Pick one part of that.
And even though she's talking about global things, he's still going to manage to be able to tie it into some things that you can do into personal responsibility.
Because the argument, I think, is that individual responsibility does not change the climate, does not fix the problem.
I swear, these two women beside him too, it's like they're sitting on a corn cob or something, because it's like they don't know how to respond. They're just stressing out.
That needs global.
I don't know what's going on with these girls, but man, it's like they're just freaking.
Do you have a theory about that?
Well, fundamentally, I'm a psychologist, and my experience has been that people can do a tremendous amount of good for themselves and for the people who are...
And this is part of the reason why I'm doing this here now, with my personal development and with wanting to build this website, is because there are people who do great things. They do amazing things, and they do it on all levels, from small to large. And whenever you're really doing something and people see this and they start to understand it and they get behind you, it can grow. And it might take a long time just because you're doing it. It's like, I'm perfectly aware that this could take years for this to happen. but I'm doing something that's really good where I want to have a better accountability for everyone. And it's not just with politicians, it means with me too.
Immediately around them by looking to their own inadequacies and their own flaws and the things that they're not doing in their lives and starting to build themselves up as more powerful individuals. And if they're capable of doing that, and then they're capable of expanding their career. And if they're capable of expanding their career and their competence, then they're capable of taking their place in the community as effective leaders. And then they're capable of making wise decisions instead of unwise decisions when it comes to making collective political decisions. I'm not suggesting in the least, and have never suggested, that there's no domain for social action. I'm suggesting that people who don't have their own houses in order should be very careful before they go about reorganizing the world.
Oh, and he got her! Because that's exactly what that means. Anybody who pays attention to him, he's talking about, yes, cleaning your room is both meant to be literal and metaphorical. Because it is a good place to start. He's not saying that you need to clean your room down to every little nook and cranny. However, it doesn't hurt, because you know what? If you want to start tackling larger and larger things that are going on, the more of these things that you can get, the better the results are going to be. But there's also plenty of things that's like, well, no, I don't have to get every single little thing. There comes a point in time where it's like, it's kind of enough. And I've seen this, like they had these TV shows where they would do something like wife swaps. And they would take two families where they were kind of opposite of each other, and they'd swap them. So, for example, one family would be really clean, just neat, freakish, and the other one would be kind of a pigsty. And then the wives would swap, and then they would freak out, you know, and they'd kind of mellow out somewhere in the middle, where it's like, yeah, maybe the pig pen over here does need to clean up a little bit, and maybe the neat freaks here need to let their hair down because they're all stressed, and they were stressed on both sides, and it happened constantly. So it's like, no. But he's saying that if you can't even get your life together in general, kind of this larger metaphor of, yeah, you're not even cleaning your room and your kitchen and your bathroom, and you don't have your finances in order, and your career's a mess, and you don't have an education, and your family and friends are all nuts and they're all over the place, and you don't know if you're coming and going, and if your life is in shambles, who the hell are you to be telling people what to be doing on a social level? It's like, no.
Which happens in many ways.
And see, she is not interested at all. It's like she doesn't even know how to respond to it because she doesn't care. She's not here for this. She's here to gloat. That's all she's here for. She doesn't have a retort for it. She has nothing to say. She's just like, It's like if she knew what he was about, she should have known that this was coming, because this is something that he's spoken about many times. I mean, he wrote a damn book about it. It's in his book.
Can I just if a young person believes that the global warming problem on the climate.
What is this? What? You are demonstrably, miserably worse off than your grandparents? Mitch Edgeworth? What the hell are you talking about? My grandmother, she told me that she could remember whenever she was a child, whenever she was born in 1919, whenever she was a little kid, they were still riding around on horses. Today we have cars that have GPS and satellite radio with the air conditioning, power-controlled steering. What the hell are you talking about? You're out of your mind. You're an idiot. What is this, like some little 3-year-old who got on here and posted this?
And it is something that needs to be tackled quickly. And they can't wait until they grow up and become prime ministers to do
I hope that was just somebody who was being sarcastic. I mean, oh my.
it. Do you think collective responsibility overrides individual responsibility in a huge issue like that?
No.
Okay.
I don't. I think that generally people have things that are more within their personal purview that are more difficult to deal with and that they're avoiding, and that generally the way they avoid them is by adopting pseudo-moralistic stances on large-scale social issues so that they look good to their friends and their neighbors.
That's exactly what she did. Oh, she's just completely blown aback by, because you know who she is? She's nothing. She's just some little activist that will go around and she'll wear the little buttons and she'll hold the little sign and she doesn't have a clue what the hell she's doing. So that's whenever she's confronted with someone who's an actual professional who engages in this stuff, she doesn't know, because this is the level that he's at and this is the level that she's at. So for example, he worked for 2 years on the UN Council for climate change. He did that. And they had, a Nobel Prize winner in economics who led the council for all this, and he got other economists and Nobel Prize winners, and he divided up into groups, all working independently. And what they wanted to do, all of them, was that they wanted to increase the education of the people around the world, to kind of increase the brain power of everyone, so there could be even more innovation, so we could have more good things that come about. So maybe that would bring about the problems that we're having with solar power and battery power. Maybe the people who are smart enough, who have the right conditions, maybe they're living over there in Africa, for example. And if they would stop with all of this fighting and join the rest of the world in creating technology, maybe we'd have an answer to that. And we'd fix that, and that would make things even better. So, yeah. So now, with all of that said, what does this mean for me, or us? So, personal responsibility, or individual responsibility, is the idea that human beings choose, instigate, or otherwise cause their own actions. A corollary idea is that because we cause our actions, we can be held morally accountable and legally liable. Because otherwise, it's like that. That's exactly what you're saying. If you're saying that you can't be held responsible for your actions, then what's the point of having a legal system? Because that's exactly it. Oh, you went and you killed someone, or you stabbed them, or you stole from them, or you raped them. That's something that you did. And you will go to court. You will be prosecuted for your horrible actions that you've done. And it's kind of, in a better society, in a good society, it would be, you would want people who are doing good things to be propelled up. But the problem, part of the problem that we're having, is that there are too many people who just say a bunch of pretty things and then they're completely lazy and worthless and they don't have the actions to back them up. Just like her. She just had nothing to back up what it is that she was saying. She was just a bunch of fluff. She just said all these things, and it was all wrong, but Jordan Peterson still managed to make it all work out there, so. So all values are personal. It's like DeWalt Tools. They didn't make up values for their company. The people who run the company place those values. Same thing with the government. The government doesn't make anything. The government's ran by people, and it's the people and their actions, and that's why politicians need to be held responsible for all this stuff. And then, I don't know, this one kind of fit right too. And this was from Wikipedia here, and all they had was Wikipedia quotes, and they didn't have anything about personal responsibility here, and it's like, I don't understand why there's so little bit of it. See, and then personal responsibility has become increasingly associated with political conservatism and liberalism. More recently, personal responsibility has been associated with form of social welfare programs. In 1996, okay, well, if they're talking about there needs to be less social welfare programs because people just need to be responsible for themselves, it's like, okay, but if you're talking about that you need to be responsible for others, that's not right, unless if they're in some kind of cognitive, if they're inept. And so that would be children, people who are mentally inept, and senior citizens in cognitive decline. So these are people who can't do for themselves. And then it's like, yes, as a society, we need to be able to step up and to take care of these people. Because the answer is not what we've been doing, which is just letting these people be out there on the streets. Oh, funny. Anyways, let's go ahead and continue. I have more, but it was like I wanted to keep this one short, and I just noticed we're over 40 minutes in this. And you know, yes, freedom brings men and women. Freedom brings people rudely and directly face to face with their responsibility for their actions. And I think, yeah, you know, because there's kind of this push towards this communism, socialism nonsense, which to me, every time whenever I hear something like this, it's, oh, I'm not going to do anything, but you should. It's like, no, absolutely not. I'm not doing a damn thing for you. If you're capable, then it's like, no. And if you're not capable, then you should be locked up. Not in prison, but in like a home for people who are mentally enabled to take care of themselves. And it should be set up so that it's a child's playground paradise. It should not be set up for an adult. It's like, nope, because you should have the attitude and the mentality of a child. So that's the way that you're going to be treated. It's not a place that any kind of reasonable adult is going to want to be at. It'll be like unicorns and pixie dust and rainbows and My Little Pony, and there will be no video games. Well, maybe a few little video games of Puff Puff, strawberry shortcake, Care Bear stuff, you know. But it's not gonna be like for teenagers. No games rated for teenagers. You're not gonna have access to the computer. You'll watch cartoons all the time, and then you'll play with the other that are there. It would be a nightmare for anyone who's got any kind of working mental capacity, functionality. And so these are just kind of quotes, and it's like, well, I want to take from these quotes and enable to kind of have a clear definition of what personal responsibility is. So there is no means by which anyone can evade his responsibility. And I didn't copy over here whoever did the quote. I didn't do it. I don't care who did the quote. Well, there might have been one or two that I did. There's no means by which anyone can evade his responsibilities. Whoever neglects to examine to the best of his abilities all the problems involved voluntarily surrenders his birthright to a self-appointed elite of supermen. Whoever neglects to examine to the best of their abilities all the problems involved voluntarily surrenders their right to be a self-appointed Superman, Superwoman. Yeah, because you're the only one who can do this. And I absolutely believe that we're capable of doing more than we are doing. I believe that of myself, that I've wasted a lot of time with a bunch of stupid stuff, and I want to get as much of that out of my life as possible. And I want to make improvements to myself. And it's never going to happen unless if I do that. Who else is going to do it? And so if I want to ever hope of becoming a super person of any kind, then I got to get busy. And this holds true for everyone. In such vital matters, blind reliance upon experts, which is stupid, blind reliance upon experts, I think you should take from several sources, be able to bring it all together like this. These are quotes from a lot of different people, and then making it into the best that you can. And uncritical acceptance of popular catchwords and prejudice is tantamount to the abandonment of self-determination to be yielding to other people's domination. And this goes in stark contrast of what we read on that website about doing what society says. It's like, that's not it at all. Because it's just like that girl then who was on that show with Jordan Peterson. She didn't have a clue what she was talking about either. As conditions are today, nothing can be more important to every intelligent man than economics. Like, okay, economics. His fate and that of his progeny are at stake. And this is from Ludwig von Mises from Human Action 1949. Like, yeah. Like that's I'm gonna have to think about this because I want to kind of sum it up. It's a lot, but and I could probably sum it up a little bit, hopefully a little bit, but I'm gonna have to kind of mull it over a little bit. And then here in 1998 from Alan Wolf from One Nation After All, to liberals and leftists. Oh, and I like this one. The message would not equally blunt. Would be to liberals and leftists, the message would be equally blunt. In particular, your insistence, almost pathological fear of understanding the importance of personal responsibility astonishes us. What makes us one nation morally is an insistence on a set of values capacious enough to be inclusive, but demanding enough to uphold standards of personal responsibility. My parents, my grandparents used to talk about this, that back in the day that it was always that we had open borders and you could come into the country, but nobody was going to help you out. That you were on it on your own. And I guess it was more my grandparents who did this, but my parents were alive that with their parents and their grandparents, they talked about that a lot. And it's like, yeah, you can't have both. You can't have open borders and a welfare system because then the whole world's going to come in. So it's just like that with all these Haitian immigrants who are coming on in. It's like, oh, well, they have all these horrible things. It's like, yes, and so does the majority of the entire damn planet, and we can't take them all in. It's like, that's not the answer. The answer is that these other places need to get it together. It's like, I think if there was ever a case to go in with military force to stop all of this violence, going in there to Haiti would be one of them. They claim that there's all these gangs and all this violence going in. Okay, it's like, well then why don't we stop it at the root cause? And I saw this where somebody was talking about this, where it's like, yeah, this seems to be what we do, is that we just sit back and we just kind of toss the dice, hoping that things are going to work out instead of taking more of an active role. And whenever we've had very long active roles, such as with South Korea and Japan and Germany, their economies went back and got very strong, but we've been there for decades. And they joined the rest of the first world. You know, and it's been peaceful with all of this going on. You know, and so it's like whenever they said that they were going to move out in the Middle East, you know, they were going to withdraw and the Taliban came and took over. It's like, well, yes, because it does take a long time. And if you've watched videos, and I've watched some of them where people came from like the UK and from other places and they visited over there, it's like, this place is actually not bad. And they were all very warm and friendly, and then they moved out. And now they're getting all whipped and beat because the Taliban came on it. It's just stupid. Antonyms for responsibility are immature, irresponsible, untrustworthy, which that is because, you know, if you say that you're going to do something but then you don't do it, then you're untrustworthy. You can say innocent because, yes, kids are just irresponsible little snot-nosed buggers. Not all the time. And hopefully most of them have a better understanding as they get older, but that doesn't always happen because you saw that one lady. Unaccountable, incompetent, weak, inefficient, unreasonable, useless, unable, inept, unrealistic, powerless, incapable, ineffective. And it's like, yes, it's all those. So like powerless. Because if you are not responsible for yourself, if you're not taking care of yourself, then that means that someone else is. So you are powerless over yourself, over your actions, over all of this stuff. Because you've handed it over to somebody else. And it seems like that's what girls want for some damn reason. Not all of them. I mean, there's some of them that they don't. It's like, yeah, you go. Man, that's a hot little mama right there. But I see too many girls like that girl that Jordan Peterson was talking to, and it's like, man, yeah. Man, I tell you what, if there's ever a lion coming at me, I'm going to walk backwards and push her forward, and it's like, I'm not going to think twice about it. Because I tell you what, these people know that they're doing wrong. They may not understand the nuances and the details with it, but they know. She knew whenever she was talking to Jordan Peterson that she was completely out of her league and she was just talking out of her ass. But that's what I'm doing here. I want better for myself, and hopefully there are others out there who want better for themselves. So yeah, I just go watch Taylor the Fiend. Oh, it's just these girls just thinking that they just deserve all of this nonsense just because they live as... So what do you think? Leave comments down below. Start a conversation if you want. That's fine. I'm not saying that I have all of this right either. This is just kind of my current thoughts at the moment. It's all subject to change. It's the #1 value that I have on my coat of arms right there. So I hope you learned something. I hope you found a little bit of my antics entertaining as well. If you did, and it's like, yeah, you believe in personal responsibility, I'm going to go over this again. I don't know when, but definitely there's more to it than this. Then I would appreciate some help if you would like the video and subscribe. And we will catch you all next time. Bye.